would like to start by saying welcome to everyone who's here, who came out, obviously a little bit colder weather than we ordered and arranged for, but at least the snow came a day early, so we were set. My name is Rabbi Uzi Beer, and I'm the principal of the lower and middle schools of the JEC, and I welcome you today to this year's Grandparents and Special Guest Day. Thank you for coming. You know, for applause, that works. I would like to ask you to take a moment and to look around the room. Because when I look around the room, I see the roots of what makes our school so special. I look at the board and see all the smiling faces of our JEC early childhood. And I know where those smiles are coming from. I know where that energy is coming from, and it's coming from you. So from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of myself, the entire school, we thank you. We thank the grandparents, the parents that will be with us, the special guests, because the impact and the investments that you've made in your children and your grandchildren, that's what's paying off here today. It's the investment in making sure that you know what's at the core, what's most important in life. And when I think about the fact that we're doing this on Hanukkah, to me is very symbolic. Because just think of the basic design of the menorah. The basic design of the menorah that we look at, there's one central column core, not the one that's on the wall, not the Chanukiah, but the menorah that was in the Beis HaMikdash. One central column core, 3 branches on either side. But it had to be made from one solid piece of gold, keeping the main essence throughout. But what's interesting is that when the flames were lit, Chazal tell us that the flames actually started leaning inwards towards the center column. Because while each flame was its own essence, had its own individuality, had its own flavor, it all came from the same core, from the same roots. And those roots, once again, stem from the ideals, the values, the midos, the Torah that you've taught your children, passed on to your grandchildren. The investments you've made in caring for one another, ben adam l'chaveiro, truly pays off. And we get the pleasure of experiencing it every single day. Before I continue with any of going into more of the thank yous, and one of the things I'm going to promise you is we're going to keep these short because you're not here to hear me. You're not here to hear anybody else really, except for the wonderful children, which will be on stage in about, not to fool, about 13 minutes or so. But we have with us, we like every year to ask a grandparent to come speak shortly, to kind of share some of their connection to the school, some of their experiences. And we ask many other grandparents, please share your stories with us. We had a beautiful open house this year full of stories. We want to hear what's coming home. We want to hear that excitement. We want to hear how the students are shining wherever they are. And as such, we have a grandparent who was a proud parent of 2, both went through the JEC system, Beria RTMA, been involved in the school since the early 1980s, and currently is the Director of Basketball Operations. It's kind of a cool title. So without any further ado, I'd like to ask Mr. Avi Bornstein to please share a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I was thinking about what is the role of a grandparent in the life of a child. And then it occurred to me, as you can see from the yarmulke that I'm wearing, that we are basically walking billboards. This yarmulke from Israel has the names of all my 6 grandchildren written on the yarmulke, and I walk around with this orange yarmulke. I wear orange because as the coach of the basketball teams, the high school main color is orange. You probably see orange around the building. So I walk around as a billboard. And my wife Sharon, who's sitting back there, she's also a billboard because she has these little things, these little gold children on her necklace. And she walks around with 6 of them and they're clanking around all the time. So she's an advertisement and I'm an advertisement. And I'm wondering, what is the role of the grandparent in the life of the child in a Jewish way? We know, of course, that the parent has the responsibility. They have to get them ready for school. They have to educate them. They have to be the ones that show them the way. What is the role of the grandparent? And of course, our first source is to look at the Jewish material. And if you look in the Chumash, you will find almost nothing. If you look in Tanakh, you will find almost nothing. Coming up in a couple of weeks, you will see the first interaction in the Chumash. You'll see Yaakov meets Yosef's 2 sons, his grandchildren. And he blesses them and he goes through this machination. He changes his hands and he says, "You are going to be like my sons." But the pasuk before that says Yaakov didn't know who they were. So Yaakov, it seems at least, on the face of things, had very little interaction with his grandchildren. Nowhere does it mention the names of the grandchildren of all the other 11 sons. And if you go through the Chumash, you can't find the names of Moshe's grandsons or daughters. So there's almost no discussion of the role of the grandparent in the Chumash, and so we have to dig a little deeper. And that brings us to the Gemara. And the Gemara actually has an indirect discussion of the relationship that should be between grandparents and their children. I refer specifically to someone named Choni the Circle Maker. Choni the Circle Maker. Choni the Circle Maker was called Choni the Circle Maker because in those times, if they had a drought, different people would daven to try to make the rain come. Choni was a big tzaddik and a learned man. He drew a circle in the sand around himself and he said, "I am not leaving this circle until it starts to rain." And lo and behold, it started to rain. So he became known as Choni the Circle Maker. So Choni the Circle Maker is learning and he's reviewing Shir Hamalos, B'Shuv Hashem Es Tzion Hayinu Kecholmim, a song of ascents, of praise. We're coming back to Zion as if we were dreamers, as if we were dreaming. How long were the Jewish people dreaming between the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash and the construction of the second one? 70 years. There was a 70-year gap. So the Gemara interprets the dreaming of Shir Hamalos to be a 70-year period. And Choni says, how is it possible to sleep for 70 years? What does that mean? Later, Choni is walking down a garden and he sees a man planting a carob tree. And he says to the man who's planting the carob tree, "How long is it going to take for you to see fruit?" And the man says, "It takes 70 years for a carob tree to mature." There's your 70 years in relation to dreaming for 70 years. So Choni says, why do you do this? Why would you work now for something that's going to happen 70 years from now? The chances are you won't even be alive. And the man says, "I plant now for the future because 70 years ago, someone else planted a tree for my present. So I plant for the future because somebody did it for me." Choni says, very interesting. He walks over to the side of the road to take a nap. And according to the Gemara, the rocks that he used to protect him surrounded him. They kind of grew, similar to the rocks that protected Yaakov. And Choni fell asleep and slept for 70 years. And then Choni gets up 70 years later, he looks around, there's the carob tree, the one that he saw that was planted. And he turns to the young man and he says, "Are you the person who planted the tree?" And the man says, no, I'm his grandson. Do you know who I am, Choni says? He says, no, I don't know who you are. So Choni, being a learned man, goes to the place where he's most comfortable. Where would that be? He goes to his shul. He goes to the Beis Medrash. He walks into the Beis Medrash and he hears the Rosh Yeshiva, and he's talking about different ideas and chidushim that some man 70 years ago, Choni, had discussed. Choni gets up and he says, Rosh Yeshiva, that's me. You're talking about me. The Rosh Yeshiva says, how can I be talking about you? Choni was alive 70 years ago. It can't be you. And Choni says, it's me. Of course, there was no way to identify people those days. And the Rosh Yeshiva said, get out of here. You can't be that guy. You haven't been here for 70 years. Choni was so upset. He had no children, no grandchildren, no community to turn to, that he prayed to Hashem, Hashem, I have no one to talk to, please take me. And he died. And the lesson that we derive from Choni's story is that we, the grandparents, we have to build the carob trees now. We have to build these types of institutions like JEC now, so that in the future, our children and our grandchildren will have their structure and their place. But not only that, while that's happening, we can't go to sleep. We can't disappear. We can't go away. We have to be involved with our children and with the growth and development of their institutions and their carob tree, not 70 years from now, but today, on the very day that we have the opportunity. Thank you, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it. And I want to take this moment, as you mentioned, about the different investments and really thank our sponsors for this program. And it's kind of sounds a little funny, sponsoring the program, because it really is sponsoring the early childhood experience that takes place in the school. Because all of the money that we raise at any point from any sponsorship in the year goes directly into the early childhood program. Whether it's for the supplies, for the trips that they may go on, for the experiences that they may have. So in that regard, for Medulla Door sponsorship, I want to thank Ricky and Seth Landa. For the Bonayev sponsorship, I want to thank Gertrude and Marvin Bienenfeld, Sharon and Avi Borenstein, Shirley and Mark Chudnoff, Ronan and Seymour Kessel, Rivki and Avi Pinsker, Mindy and Victor Pinter. And for the Ava sponsorship, I want to thank Penny and Lenny Beer, Leslie and David Brown, Deborah and Alexander Diamond, Jeffrey Hoffman, Lynn and Bill Youngrice, Sarah and Steve Karp, Edza and Isaac Novick, Mimi and Harry Stadler, amongst all of the other supporters of this beautiful event. And again, if anyone wants to still support, we're definitely willing and encouraging that venture. Want to take a very quick moment while thanking people to really thank some essentials in our building. Obviously, I want to thank, we have amongst us the director of the board, the head of the board, Dr. Steve Singfer, who's with us as a proud grandparent. Rabbi Pinchas Shapiro, our executive vice president. I know Steve Karp as well, our executive director, another proud grandparent. Want to thank Jim, John, and Prince, the entire security team who keep us safe every single day. I want to thank Bitzalo, with Javier, Jamal, Gary, Dennis, who really helped this place shine and function every single day. Without you, we wouldn't have a building to walk into. To Shandy's like hiding in the back. To Shandy, Debbie, and Mazal, the office staff who helped keep this place running and functioning. And as well to the administrative team. We really work as a full family to make things function. So I want to thank Dr. Grossman, Mrs. Leiter, Maura Rivka, for really helping educate and guide our children. So thank you for that. When thinking about the program for today, we thought we could put on a great show on stage. Have all the great effects, really wow you. But then you would have just that what you would see your grandchildren, they would shine, it'd be a great experience. But you wouldn't have the chance to see them in action. So we said, you know what, as part of the program, we need to go into the classrooms. We need to allow you to be able to see them in their environment, in their glory, to see their moras shining as they're exuberating with warmth and care and that love of Torah that the children feel every single day. To be able to just look around, to see the hallways that your grandchildren are spending most of their waking hours. Could be in this gym, and one of the things I'd love to be able to just put a quick pitch before the next part of the program is next time you come back to this gym for the next Grandparents' Day, you won't recognize this gym. Because thanks to a very generous sponsor, the entire floors will be redone, and we have it for a nice new paint job around the walls. Obviously, if there are others who would like to add to that experience, there's a lot of other aspects we could add as well, with regard to adding to our AV system, with regard to adding to different lighting, curtains. There's much room that we have, an opportunity to continue to grow our school. So yes, that may be a little bit of a tasteless pitch, but it's something that we definitely look to you to help support us in all realms and ventures in enhancing our school. Also, when you're in your classrooms, I recommend take a look outside. You may have noticed a white fence along the street, which didn't used to be there. Then now we have an enclosed grass play area for our grandchildren, that they can go and play and fall and not get hurt, and be able to play sports and footballs and not be worried about cars. It's a great experience, and we would love to add to the supplies, potentially a playground inside of that as well. So again, the more that we can support and build the experience for our grandchildren, we all will benefit. As I mentioned about the experience in the classroom, there's one person who leads that early childhood experience. From realms of room design, to inspiring the teachers, to her relationship with the students. It is my pleasure at this point, the mastermind for the designs, everything happening for the Grandparents' Day. So in appreciation, and also it is my honor to call up Morivka Isaacs, our Director of Early Childhood.
Welcome, and thank you so much for coming. For those of you that know a little bit about my background, know that I spent 18 years living, teaching, and raising my family in Eretz Yisrael. When Hanukkah time came around, my children would come home singing a very special song that you may be familiar with. Bano choshech legaresh, b'yadenu or va'esh, kol echad hu or katan, ve'kulanu or eitan, surah choshech al hashachor, sur mipnei ha'or. The beautiful thing about this song is that it tells our children and it teaches our children that light chases away the darkness. And that within each of us, in each one of our children, there's a small flame. And that small flame has the power to chase away the darkness. We know that light symbolizes many, many things in Torah. I'm reminded of a story that happened about 10 years ago when I was living in Connecticut. We used to take our children to visit the seniors' home around Hanukkah time. And I'm sure you know how it goes. We'd go in, and I would tell over the story of Hanukkah very dramatically. Our children would get up and they would sing Hanukkah songs. And then, after we would sing, the children would go around the seniors and they would play with the seniors' dreidel. They would give out small presents. We even brought books so that sometimes the seniors could read to our children about Hanukkah, and sometimes our children could read to the seniors about Hanukkah. At one point, I would always find myself taking some of those shyer children around that didn't really feel so confident to go walk around a room full of people they didn't know. And I would introduce them, introduce myself, introduce the school. We would wish everybody a happy Hanukkah. And at one point, as I was walking around the room with some children, saying shalom, an elderly woman, she grasped my arm. You know, sometimes they have a really strong grasp, you know? She grasped it. And I felt, of course, obligated to turn. I said, hello, Chag Sameach. And she looked at me and she said, can I tell you a story? And I said, sure. if I can tell them stories, they certainly can tell me stories. Her story was that when she was younger, she was in a concentration camp, and I don't have to tell you how hard that was and how difficult it was for the people who lived through that. At one point during the time she was in the concentration camp, she decided she needed to make a light for Hanukkah. It was Hanukkah, and she felt even if she couldn't light a menorah, if she couldn't do what she had been taught when she was growing up, she wanted to light a menorah. Now, you know, many people might have heard the story or read it in a book, but this is the first time I actually heard somebody actually tell me this story. So she said, what did she do? She stole a potato. She found something that she felt would be good to use for oil inside the potato, which she created into a menorah, and she found some strings from her garment and she put it in. And she lit that light. And she told me that when she saw that light, it resonated really deep inside of her. She told me that that light reminded her that light, even the smallest of lights, can chase away the darkness. Baruch Hashem, she lived through the Holocaust, she got married, she had children, and currently her children were living far away. And she said this was the newest hardship for her, this was something that was giving her darkness in her life. And then she asked me to stop and look around the room. And she asked me to tell her what I saw. And I looked around the room, and I told her. I saw bubbies, zaydas, older bubbies, older zaydas, sabas and saftas, grandmas and grandpas, and I saw them playing with my students, and I saw them smiling, and I saw them laughing, and I saw them holding hands and getting hugs. And I actually also saw tears. Tears from some of the seniors, and tears from some of the caretakers. And my heart just sort of melted, and she looked at me, and she shook her head. She nodded, and she said something that really, really affected me inside, that changed my point of view. She said, look at the light in this room. Look at the light in the room. These children are our light. They will continue to burn bright into the future. And her words really struck a chord inside my heart, and I hear them every single day. Every single day when I go to work, I thank Hashem for those words when I look into the classrooms and I watch the teachers with the children. And those children, they are bright, bright lights. And you know what? It's our privilege to be able to enjoy those bright lights. But even more, it's a privilege to be able to keep those lights burning, strong and bright. This is how we ensure our future and their future. This is how we win the eternal fight of the Maccabees against the immortal forces of darkness. This is how we continue to add light to the world. I want to thank you for coming, but more than that, I want to thank you for all that you do for your children and your grandchildren, and that you continue to do for your grandchildren. I wish and hope and pray that you're able to do this for many, many years to come, and that you should be able to share both in the joy, the nachat, from your children and your grandchildren. Without further ado, I would like to introduce and invite our Nerot to come onto the stage. Okay, thank you.
first of all, for all of our juniors' parents who are wondering where the juniors are, they're going to be coming on after the kindergarten presentation. We gotta realize how long they can sit for. At this point, to begin this part of the program, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise. First, the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by Hatikva. You may be seated. All I have to say. Fantastic, that was so good. Not only are you guys glowing and lighting up, but you just lit up everyone in this room. I don't think you see a face that's smiling. Well done to all of you. In just a moment, we're going to have our early childhood students join their grandparents, parents, or special guests. But before that, there's just a few other thank yous that we want to add in.
So the magic that you see here with the children and in the classrooms happens because we have some very special people working at JEC. And I really want to take a moment to just thank them. First and foremost, I want to thank the person who designed our room, Michal Zapata. More Michal. She's not here, but in addition, I also want to thank we have another staff member who helps out in early childhood, Maura Caitlin. And she actually put hours and hours whenever we needed, whether it was to cover the teacher so the teacher could do something, or to actually come and actually do whatever work we needed from her. She actually came in, Lev Shalem, and helped us out. So thank you, Caitlin. I would be remiss if I did not thank my right-hand person. Without her, I don't know what I would do. She keeps my sanity. She really does. So Mara Frankie, where are you? I also want to thank Maura Solomon for being there, for doing the music for us. Lastly, I want to thank each and every one of the early childhood staff, the Maras and the assistants, because without you doing what you do, your passion, your creativity, your hard work, your enthusiasm, every single day you come in with a smile. Every day you show up, roll up your sleeves, and you're ready to happen and you're ready to work. So there are no words to really express how much we appreciate that, but you really make our program, so thank you. Right now, our children are gonna come off the stage and they're gonna join you, and then we're gonna do a special presentation. We'd like you to see a little bit of the magic that happens when you're not in the classrooms.